This presentation provides an analysis of the drawn-out development application and planning process of the Central Park development in Sydney. The aims and objectives of this analysis are to look at the process from the perspective of the developer and provide suggestions on how the City of Sydney could have facilitated a more efficient and effective outcome. The Central Park development sits on 5.8 hectares on the fringe of the Sydney CBD, just 400 metres away from Central Station. Once the development is completed, a $2 billion investment would have turned the old Carlton United Brewery into what the Frasers property CEO called a gallery of eminent architects. This mixed-use development formed part of a neighbourhood-wide revival and aimed to create an environment where people could live, work and play. In the drawn-out planning process, all the stakeholders, including the developer, were involved right from the beginning in the process of designing the local environmental plan. This came to an end in 2005 when the developer rescinded on the deal to purchase the property, citing a slow planning process by the City of Sydney. This prompted the involvement of the New South Wales State Government to take over the planning process from Council, and the CUB, as the developer, continued its involvement in designing the LEP. Considering the extended planning process, how does the case study stack up against the best practice planning theory? Urban planning plays both a forward planning and development planning role. The forward planning role should identify the framework for reaching the desired outcomes for a particular area. The development planning role assesses proposed developments according to that framework. According to the 8-step planning process, the first 5 steps should be the forward planning process of compiling a planning framework, followed by steps 6 to 8 being the development planning process. Research is needed to plan for the future needs and changes in an area, as well as establish if there are any heritage or environmental considerations. The CUB site was in a rapidly gentrifying area, perfectly positioned as a gateway to the city for the significantly growing Sydney population. Based on the research, the stakeholders undertook to create an LEP that would facilitate a development that would embody sustainability, maintain the heritage of the site, and increase the residential housing supply. The land allocation step in the process is key to adequately meeting the forecasted needs of an area. The City Edge did not adequately take into consideration the heritage and residential requirements for the site. Therefore, the CSPC decided to create a site-specific LEP. The articulation of development process is the process by which the development controls and land use plans are established. The developer, the CSPC, and the City of Sydney were involved in the 2.5-year negotiation before the LEP and DCP for the site were finalised. It was at this point in the process that the New South Wales State Government took over the planning decision-making role under Part 3A of the EP&A Act. This was unusual as the urban planning responsibility usually sits with the local government in Australia. The public was consulted on the land allocation and articulation plan numerous times in the process. The competition applications were exhibited and the CSPC released the draft LEP and DCP prior to adoption. When Frasers purchased the site in 2007, the master plan had been agreed upon with the previous owner. Frasers then placed an application for the desired amendments to the master plan. After the final amendments were made to the master plan, the Minister of Planning signed off on the project in October 2008. There has been considerable community involvement in the planning process, and Frasers Property has shown continued commitment to involving the community in every phase of the development. So, where was the bottleneck in the process that caused the delays? Much of the process was done well, from research to establishing clear objectives and engaging the public in both the development of controls for the site as well as providing feedback on the master plan itself. The major bottleneck came in steps 3 and 4 of the process, namely land allocation and the articulation of the development. These 2 steps related directly to the finalisation of the local environment plan and the development control plan, which would ultimately provide the framework for the master plan. Because the stakeholders endeavoured to create a site-specific LEP due to the significance of the site, the forward planning for the site had not yet been completed before the developer got involved. By having the developer, the Central Sydney Planning Committee and the City of Sydney involved in creating the LEP guidelines delayed the process due to extended negotiations and disputes that stem from an intrinsic conflict of interest. The recommendation is thus that the developer remains autonomous from the City of Sydney and CSPC during the forward planning phase of urban design. By doing this, the time-wasting negotiations and conflicts between the developer and the council can be avoided. The developer then has the added benefit of having a comprehensive framework and set of guidelines to work with, resulting in time saving in the development application process, as was seen when Fraser's property purchased the CUB site once the LEP and DCP were already finalised.